Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
It is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt.
And Dale Hummel.
Give me liberty or give me death.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Huge current events day, Ryan, especially on an international scale.
Yeah. I have more important current events than you.
Go ahead. Have at it.
And they have nothing to do with international. They have to do with what this podcast is supposed to be about, not you and China.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're going to talk about China today. I promise you it is going to be a topic.
This is just an in general FYI. I feel I have meant to bring this up before and I have not, but the events of this past weekend have brought it to my attention again. And so to all my hog showman children and my hog showman families, there is a new trend in showing hogs that I think would probably need to be a little concerned about or end it. And I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that the kids like bounce up and down when they're walking around in the ring. I know you don't judge hog shows much.
You and I discussed this, maybe not on here. We discussed it. I thought maybe we brought
it's not been on here, but it's really getting bad. And I don't know why we bounce up and down in the ring, but we need to stop. So that's the end of current events. No more bouncing.
No more bouncing. I'm in favor of that, and I've noticed it a few times. And I think when I noticed it, I asked you about it, and you said
no more bouncing up and down. So let's go into the main topic, because if Doug gets started on current events, it's going to be bad.
Oh, I'm going to talk about some protests.
Oh, Jesus.
Do you know why the protests began in China?
Because 10 people died in 10.
But the best thing, and I shouldn't say the best thing, it's very unfortunate the deaths occurred, and that should not have happened, period. Because of the extreme COVID lockdowns, they have this apartment building locked down, literally where the people living there cannot get out. There's a fire on the 15th floor, and they can't get out, and nobody appears to be letting them out. Terrible situation. I don't know all the details on that. More importantly, this has quickly evolved into a multiple issue protest, and they've come out strong against the COVID lockdowns, referencing back to the fire issue and many other issues. But what I'm excited about is we're starting to see protesters come out down with President Xi and give me liberty or give me death. Historically, this is the beginning of regime change. If we go back in time, how these things happen. Now we're way too early in this. And unfortunately, China and the CCP may come down so hard on the protesters, it will come to an end soon. But we have to acknowledge that the protesters are reaching out, and we have to at least give them support from the standpoint that we understand your cause. We're behind you to whatever extent we can.
The White House did not do that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And unfortunately, the White House is not. But let's hope that others in other countries are. It's interesting to me. We can talk about protests in this country, and there are many of them. It's a little different when you protest in China. Ryan, you're aware if those protesters are arrested, and many have been, they're not just sitting in jail overnight and let out the next day. What's happening to them?
Life, death. They're in jail for life or they die.
And that's the reality of it. So
no, I'm not joking. That's what happens.
Yeah. If they come out and are willing to risk that, it's a pretty damn important cause. It's not let's save the little lizard in the hills of Oregon or whatever it may be. You're not going to put your life on the line for that. This is about human rights, and I think getting away from the Communist Party.
Well, and I agree with all that. And again, it's in 10. From what I 10 people died in the apartment building, but then I also understand that there are protests going on in 10 of the major, more metropolitan urban cities in China.
Yep. Actually, up to 15 provinces are now protesting as of today. And that's huge. So it's spreading.
Yeah. And I get all that, and I applaud their efforts and their bravery more than their efforts. here's the thing, and I talked to you about this yesterday, and you just glazed over because you don't like to hear reality.
I did not remember that conversation.
They have no weapons. They
No,
have
they don't.
no weapons. This is not like America, where if shit happens, all the people that have arms can actually, try to do something. So they can take to the streets all they want. They have no weapons. So I don't see how this leads to regime change when they literally will either be jailed for life or killed, and they have no way to defend themselves. Not trying to be a downer here.
No, I get it. And that's always that's what's happened in the past. And this has not happened very often, by the way. And I don't remember when Tiananmen Square.
It has not happened at all under Xi Jinping's reign.
Yeah. And the Tiananmen Square was a protest of students, I believe, protesting specific leaders, not the entire party.
That is
and much, much lesser. And once that protest happened, the CCP came down so hard and made this basically, they're so locked down as far as human rights and anything post that this just hasn't even been on the radar. But it's interesting, even what they're talking about. So they don't want their populace to understand what's going on in the rest of the world. So Twitter, the communist government, has put up 90% porn to block any real information. So you've got to search through a lot of porn that would probably distract some, and you're going to miss some of that actual information. In regards to the World Cup, obviously they can get it on their phone or somehow through state communist television. They'll show you the actual play of the soccer, but they avoid screening up into the crowd to avoid seeing that there are very few or no masks being worn. I think that they've tried to control this populace so much by not allowing information to come in. And at some point, and maybe this is the point, they can't prevent all of that. It's impossible. And once they see that the rest of the world is not locked down like this, the rest of the world has freedoms and a decent life, that I believe this will continue to instigate these protests. And I hope that not too many people lose their life or go to jail for life or any of those things. But if these protests continue to grow with or without weapons, I don't know the population of China, but they have enough people there to take over the government. I'm confident of that. Would it be easier with weapons? Absolutely. No question whatsoever. So I don't want to say it's encouraging because people are losing their lives, but something has to change. And remember, I've talked about how China is going to rule the world, or it's making that attempt to do so. I never talked about necessarily this specifically, that the people of China will rise up and change that. We've talked about trying to take out that party in different ways. Maybe this is one of those options. And the reason I'm so optimistic about this is something has to happen. And this is the most realistic. No, I'm not crazy. They're going to impact they already are. When they shut down production of any of our essential items, it impacts our lives, and it's going to continue to get worse if something doesn't change. And I don't see our current White House doing anything on a 10-year plan to bring back all essential production to North America.
I don't know why you think the current White House wants to do anything. Do you not understand that China and Hunter, they're buddies, they pay each other off, etc., etc.? There's nothing going to happen from the White House. So you need to get out of that pipe dream, sir. This is why all this money in Ukraine. Do you not remember Burisma? This has been my whole thing with you and your sympathy to all of the Ukraine of it all, and wanting them to continue
to the people of Ukraine, not
they're dirty.
Not the politicians.
That man,
people,
no, you talk good about that man leading Ukraine. That man is dirty. He is just as dirty as Putin and Xi Jinping. Just as dirty. Just because he has a nice face and gets on camera with a gun does not make him any better.
He may be as dirty, but not as dangerous. How's that?
Okay.
And the people of Ukraine. And again, I'm sure there's dirty people of Ukraine just like there are here.
No, I'm not talking about, I'm just saying, you always praise that little leader over there. And I'm like, yeah, he's just trash.
He seems to be a brave little soul. How's that? A dirty, brave.
There you go. Then you like it because he wants to shoot people in the kneecap. So you like him.
Yes. What about Elon? He's catching a little heat over maybe.
Well, that's because Elon's going to out why they wouldn't let the Hunter Biden laptop story out. Elon's going to end up. You want to talk about people that are going to end up dead? Elon's going to end up dead.
I mean, I don't know if you're joking or not, but that is I believe that to be serious.
I
maybe too high profile to take out.
I think Elon is pressing too hard, too fast. I mean, and I love it, but like, I was watching this one guy last night, and he's like, and I kind of tend to go with this too. He's like, I'm waiting for the next shoe to fall because this is too good to be true. The richest man in the world wants to do nothing but reinstate free speech, yada, 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 yada. It's like, I have no complaints about anything he's done so far, but what is the end game? What does he get out of this? And I think that's a very good question, but I don't know the answer. But basically, Elon,
I hope it's a selfless act to improve.
I don't
the
think.
country.
Yeah,
that's what I hope it to be.
Yeah, you're living in a pipe dream because that doesn't happen anymore. But anyway, he is going to release why the whole Hunter Biden laptop story has been censored is the latest thing, from what I understand, and people are very, very angry about it because they don't. And I don't understand this. They think that this is going to make people believe that there is censorship in America when there's not supposed to be censorship in America. But there is censorship in America, even though there's not supposed to be. Our former president got kicked off Twitter. All these other things are suppressed. That is censorship. Am I wrong?
That is the definition I know. And how do these liberals come out if they come out against being more transparent on Twitter and the things that had happened, when they come out and are very angry against that, is this not admission of corruption and they want it to continue?
Oh, you would think.
I just don't understand. He's not saying I'm going to lean more to the right or lean more. I'm just going to be transparent and we're going to have freedom of speech, and people are furious about it. That is nothing more than admission of guilt, in my opinion.
I'm not arguing with you. I worry about Elon's safety. I'm just gonna say,
I appreciate him so much. I'm going to reactivate a Twitter account, and you know what else I might do? I didn't think I'd ever say this. What? I might buy a Tesla just in support of Elon. Well, and I don't want to plug Elon's the damn thing
Tesla,
in.
He might want to check underneath it for explosive devices the next time he gets in it. Would be my opinion on the Elon of it all, because.
And I hear on Car Marketplace or wherever, there's a lot of liberals selling their Tesla, so it might be a good buy on them right now.
Oh, that very one likely. Goofy actress, Alyssa, whatever, she drove hers back to the dealership and just left it there and went and bought a Volkswagen.
Yeah, she's the same one that praised Elon earlier.
Right, Elon was great. Now she went and dropped hers off at the thing, went and bought a Volkswagen. But okay. And as the many people on Twitter told her, Volkswagen was created basically by Hitler. So, I mean, where do you draw the line here?
They're crazy, but they're just crazy. So there is no line. It's just all raw emotion and craziness. That's all.
I never even thought she was that great an actress, to be honest with you. She was.
I didn't even recognize who she was. I have no idea.
She was on Charmed. It was a witch TV show, and she was by far my least favorite one of the three. But, I mean, whatever.
What about the crypto crook? I don't even know his name.
Oh, the crazy man that's in the Bahamas, Bermuda, somewhere. Yeah. So that story's fascinating to me. So he got all these people to include, I think Tom Brady and Tom Brady's soon-to-be ex-wife, or two of them. All these other, heavy hitter people, whatever, to invest in this company. And several people went on TV, I'm not saying on, national TV, but on those futures deals, the Fox Business News and all this other stuff, went on there and they're like, this company is not legit. This is not, they played these clips of these people doing this, and everybody still did it anyway. And now the money, poof, be gone. Bye.
Just a monster Ponzi scheme is what it appears.
Like, and we're not talking about like a couple $100,000. We're talking like billions of dollars. So,
well, I had heard he gave $27 million to the midterm elections to Democrats.
Try 42
campaign.
42 million. That's what he's given to the Democratic Party. I don't know how it was split between the midterms. Where 42 million. Yeah, and that wasn't his money to give. I don't think, but I mean, he did it anyway.
No. I think there's no money there left. I don't even know where. It's hard to wrap my head around.
Which isn't the company called FTD? No, that's a florist. I don't even know what the company's called. But anyway,
something like that.
It's something like that. But anyway, my whole thing is this man has done this. I don't think that he's like saying that he didn't do it. And they have footage of him like in a home that he used this funds to buy with in either the Bahamas or either in the Bahamas or Bermuda or whatever. Like he's no consequences at all.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if the Bahamas or wherever he's at, if they extradite to the U.S., but I assume they do. He needs to find him a country that he cannot be extradited, because I have a feeling they're coming for him.
I think the man needs to be in jail. Like, that is my personal opinion.
I could go a step further.
I'm sure you could. That's why you like that little idiot in Ukraine. But I'm just saying, like, I think the man does not need to be, like hanging out shirtless on top of his balcony waving at people. I think the man needs to be in jail. But
I would agree, and I'm not going to give my necessarily opinion on crypto and whether we should use crypto or invest in it or anything. But this little stunt here takes away.
I thought you were invested in crypto.
I had some Bitcoin, and we actually had people wanting.
Okay, I know you had some. I knew you had something at some point.
So I'm in favor of some concept, and I don't know what it is, but I think this is total crap that every country around the world can print as much money as they want without gold backing it up, and we have some World Bank or the markets dictate, I guess, what the value of that dollar is or that peso. I think it's a messed up system. I've tried to understand it, and I don't. It just doesn't logically make sense to me. When we had to have enough gold reserves stored, owned by that country to back up the currency, that makes perfect sense. But the way the currency is right now, to me, it's of no more value than the paper that it's printed on. I don't understand how it continues to have value and we continue to print millions and billions or trillions of dollars, or as well as other countries. And you've seen the value of the peso in other countries just dropped to almost nothing. I'm not so sure that can't happen to more developed countries, or I shouldn't even say that, to us, basically. So I'm in favor of some type of U.S. or world currency that there is X amount, and you do not make more of it. You can increase the value and divide it into smaller portions, but this is it. We don't just make more of it automatically and bail ourselves out of this debt just to put it off into something worse. So I don't know where that is, but I do know that this gentleman, we don't even know his name, really put a big hit on cryptocurrency in general. And again, I'm not saying that we need to move to cryptocurrency, but it looked like some of it was getting some traction for a while. And it's at least a concept or an idea. I suspect at some point there'll be the World Bank or a government will adopt this type of currency, and it will not be in privately owned hands. It'll be more government controlled. Enough said with that. What else?
I don't. I was very busy. I judged lots of shows this past weekend, like I think 16,000. So I didn't have a whole lot of time.
And currently held captive in Cherie's home.
Not for long, but yeah, right now I have to record a podcast. But yeah, so I don't know. I thought there was something else that was very strange that happened there's lots of strange things going on. We talked about Elon.
You wanted to brag on your Speaker of the House.
I did. I believe. Oh, yeah. No.
About forgot that one.
Yeah, I did. Dylan Clifton, again, and I said this on the podcast and they told me I was wrong, and I'm not wrong. like to bring that up. Even Clifton interrupted me and said, "Oh, nope, I was right. They're wrong." So
he pulled the plug on the recording for a short period.
When we talked about that McCarty got the nomination from the GOP to be speaker, that does not make him speaker, as I said. They vote in January, and you have to have 218 votes to have the majority of the votes if everybody shows up. Here's the problem. There are 5 people, and I watched 2 of them last night on TV, live on Fox News, that are not going to vote for McCarty, regardless.
Political suicide if they do not. Political suicide. I believe it's a bluff.
I don't think it is. They were on TV last night and clearly stated that they would not.
So they're going to sustain or vote for.
They didn't say.
Somebody.
They said that, but they didn't say. But they said they will not be casting their vote for him for speaker. He can lose 4 votes in the Republican Party and still retain his speakership or become the speaker, but he cannot lose 5. 5 have publicly stated that they will not vote for him, and 2 of them were on last night. So, again, I don't know what's going to happen here, but everybody thinking that there's going to be a Republican speaker, y'all better like pray a lot, is all I can say.
Just telling you there's no way it cannot happen. There is.
Okay, I sent you the article. Did you not read it?
I did not. Rather, I lied to you and told you I did.
Yeah, you lied. Mm-hmm. So when all this goes down in January, you're going to be like, oh, shit, what the hell?
If there is a Republican representative in the House that causes the Republicans not to hold the speaker position, that to me is insane. Even if they don't like who they're voting for, it's better than the other side. So I just can't. I understand they don't like him. I get that. And I get that they don't want to vote for him. But when it comes down to it, don't you believe they will?
I do not believe the 2 people that I listened to last night will. No, I do not.
And that's possible. I think that you could have 2, 3. You said you had to have 5 that don't. I can see 4.
No, he can lose 4. He can lose 4 votes and still win. 5. In the article I sent you, Joe, yesterday that you refused to read because you do not like it when I'm right. 5 have publicly stated they are not voting for him. That means he become the speaker.
Then who does?
That's kind of why it's a newsworthy article, why I sent it to you, FYI. But, fine. Continue to bury your hand in the sand like an ostrich and don't worry about it.
Sometimes I'm a little busy. Sometimes I have other things going on than to read articles.
Sometimes you just don't want to admit when I'm right and actually know shit. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to move on off of current events.
Yeah.
We did get to I appreciate you allowing me to discuss China a little bit. I mean, maybe it wasn't a lot.
You discussed it a lot. I don't know what else you want to discuss about it. I mean,
at this point,
I'm with the people. I hope they take him out. Okay. I just think that you're getting your hopes up a little bit. Is all.
No, I am not going to deny that. I have to have hope because there has to be something that changes.
I'm all for it. I hope they win. I hope whatever. I hope they find. I think somebody should just drop ship a whole bunch of Uzis over there in the streets and let them have at it. Okay, I'm all.
In all seriousness, just about as effective as dropping weapons down to them is the fact. I think Elon needs to give them Starlink. I think we need to give them access to the internet so they can see what's going on in the rest of the world. More access to unrestricted internet so they can see what's going on in the rest of the world. And just giving them that information is huge. And I think it's happening through various methods. Okay, I would like to give a huge thank you to ShowFresh H2O. Their continued support of this podcast is appreciated and it makes it possible for this podcast to release an episode each and every week. If you have not tried ShowFresh H2O, please do so. Available at your local supply trailer or swampfox.com. Do you have any BTR, JLA?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. Why are you trying to rush? You act like, is there a fire going on in your phone? Is there a fire going on in your phone?
You weren't going to read any more of the top 10 in those. I thought you mentioned that.
Last week was the last age division. Now I'm going for the top 10 overalls because we're at the final. We're running out to the end here. So, doing the top 10 overalls. This will be the last time that we do the top 10 overall GOAT for this year. And this is going to shake up because, again...
What about at the very end? We're going to have to do it?
I meant on the podcast. Dale, I don't think you want me to read all of the winners on the podcast. That would be like 6 podcasts at the end of the year.
Of the overall, I think would be good.
Oh, my God. No, Dale. You let me worry about this. Anyway.
Just keep going. You have it.
This is going to shake up because, again, we're waiting on Kansas City and Louisville's results. We have been in contact with them. I had a message yesterday. They are coming, and again, those points are double, so this will change. But right now, probably the most competitive division throughout the year was the Goats. And right now, there's a 4-way tie for first with a perfect score, basically. And Colby Wilson, Audrey Poling, Ashley Poling, and Jordan Ash all have 510 points. Piper Liska has 500 points. Evan Ditzler has 495. Reagan Rogers has 470. Paisley Carsland has 440. Kara Rogers has 440. And Michael Roselle has 432. So there you go.
Excellent. Congratulations to the top 10.
Right. And I would like, because as we are rounding out our year, this is going to be the last few couple weeks, so we can give a shout out to our 2022 sponsors. I would like to thank our corporate sponsors for this year: Showcoat Solutions, Leonard Truck and Trailers, JH Cattle, Mini Herefords, Mini Mafia Publication, and Brock Farm Angus. Those were our national corporate sponsors this year. We really appreciate their support, and we hope that they will be back for 2023.
Excellent, excellent. Today's topic: livestock judging contest etiquette. Ryan, there's a lot to talk about here.
Yes, and this is Dale's topic. I don't remember what sent him all into got him all Twitter pated, but it's a good topic, and so I appreciate that he came up with it. But I think the best way to tackle this is there are many different ways that people are involved in a livestock judging contest, way beyond being just the person that is competing and marking cards. And for it to be a successful contest and a well-run contest and an effective contest, everybody that plays a role in it really has to step up and give it their all. And so I think we should go through the different roles of people being involved and, say the things that we think are vital to making their positions as good as they can be. But we can start with being, the contestant, I guess, because that's what most people feel like is the most important. And so I think one of the things as a contestant that you really need to do is, I think you need to have confidence in your placing. And there have been some incidents as of late where maybe that contest doesn't give the reasons takers the placings of the kids, and we just have the honor system, and maybe you switch your placing and do something, talk a different placing than what you actually turned in. That's happened as of late. I'm not going to say when, but last couple years or so. And that's really, really not the way to go. And when I'm just going to tell you, when you find out that somebody's done that and it's for sure and for real, and like, for instance, if you're the reason taker and you listen to that kid and they gave you, my placing is 1, 2, 3, 4, and afterwards the livestock official, the judging contest officials come to you and say, hey, you gave this kid a 48 and he placed it 1, 2, 3, 4, and the actual placing is 4, 2, 3, 1. How did he talk a 48 with that bad a mark? It pisses you off. I'm just going to tell you. And that's going to stick with you and that kid and that team forever.
Agreed completely. I think you can go even a step further. And I was thinking on a broader scale as well as some of the specifics. But as a contestant, if you stop and think about all the effort, and I know there's a lot of different levels. Here's your local county contest that maybe we kind of throw together in a matter of an hour or so. And all the way up to, let's put it up on a pedestal, the senior college contest at Louisville, their national contest. So we've got everything in between there. But as we start progressing up from your county to your state to your national FFA and 4-H and junior college and senior college contests, there's a lot of effort and work that's put forth to put on those contests. So I believe as a contestant, you need to respect that. You need to be professional. You need to be very, very respectful of those around you and those that are putting on this event, and conduct yourself accordingly. And Ryan brings out that the situation where if the reasons officials do not have the card, that there has been contestant or contestants in the past that may change their placing, that obviously is going to improve the reason score. That is unacceptable on every level, period. I can also speak from experience in my years coaching in the junior college and senior college levels. Historically speaking, and it still continues today, there are some contestants, and Ryan said they need to have more confidence in their placing. Some contestants that feel better about taking a survey. Does that make sense, Ryan? They'll actually.
I understand. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. No.
So they will travel behind the other contestants trying to get a placing off their notebook, or stand, and this happens sometimes depending on whether the group leader is aware of this or not. But sometimes they call cards in a certain order, or you're allowed to turn your card in at the group leader in any order. But some contestants will make an effort to stand near that group leader, and as each card's turned in, they can kind of take a survey of those placings before they commit to theirs. And this has been going on for as long as when I was competing in contests and coaching, and it still happens today. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we discuss some of the roles of group leaders. But it goes back to Ryan mentioning, have confidence in your placing. You hear stories about different teammates ending up discussing things in the bathroom, or casual contact when they're walking past each other or showing each other notebooks. This doesn't need to happen. It just doesn't. And I understand as contest officials, not I should say, those putting on the contest, you can't prevent it all. And I think many do take very large steps to keep it as clean and as honest as they possibly can. But ultimately, the responsibility comes down to the contestants, and they need to appreciate this particular event for what it is, and that those things don't need to happen.
Yeah, and I do think that the majority of the contest have taken as many steps as they have to keep it whatever. I mean, I can remember when they figured out how to use Apple Watches to communicate and all, you can go back and 100 different things. They had hand signals or whatever, all this other stuff. But if someone wants to go down that path, just like you said, they can go to the restroom and whatever and all this other stuff. If that's the way they want to do it, then they're going to find a way. Again, this is like just in a livestock show. This is not the majority. This is by far the minority, but there are going to be people in everything that are not going to want to play by the rules. And so, again, I think that the majority of people in charge of contests have taken all the steps they can to make it as fair event as possible. But it goes back to what I'm saying. If we would just have confidence in what our placings are and do our own work and go out there and turn them in and let the chips fall where they may, because some days you're going to have a bad day. Some days you're going to miss a class, etc. But it is something that I think that is something that is really out there and real, and I wish that could be different.
And maybe another perspective to look at it from that contestant. Think about it in this manner, that those things usually get noticed by somebody, and there's discussion about it. And the fact that you're not playing by the rules, even if you succeed, is probably going to stick with you much longer. That stamp, that negative blemish on you as a person is going to stick with you longer than maybe the win of that contest.
I would definitely agree with that completely.
So think about that, guys, where you're at. I mean, if you're just looking out for yourself, it doesn't work. It doesn't calculate long-term. The results of that contest are minimal compared to the stamp that you're going to be, or the blemish that's going to be put upon you because of the actions you took during that. So yeah, I think a great direction to go, and there's lots to talk about in here, Ryan. What about and again we have various contests, and some contests don't have a designated superintendent, but the role of it. Let's take some of our bigger, larger contests, whether they're 4-H, FFA, junior college, senior college, they have a contest superintendent, and I think a lot of this starts right here. That we need a superintendent that's been involved in those trenches, whether a contestant, a coach, very current in the industry, and have the ability to bring together a team that understands the importance of their role in making this contest a success. And I think we've got some great superintendents out there, and it's interesting to me because to my knowledge, there are very few, if any, that are actually paid for what they're doing. It's voluntary, and maybe their expenses are covered, but it takes a lot of time to put on a well-run, professional, national level type contest. And for that, I do appreciate those superintendents that step up and do those things.
Yeah, and I do think that, and this is terrible to say, but the integrity of the contest and how good the contest is, it all kind of lies on that person there, because they're going to make the large majority of the decisions that affect that contest. And so, and it's just like you said, these people aren't paid. They volunteer, and most of them are excellent at what they do, and we're very, very thankful to have them out here. But they kind of are the grand poobah, as you say. And so, a lot of whether the contest is a success and the integrity lives and dies in that person.
They're making those decisions on appointing group leaders that understand their role, and bringing officials in that are current and take upon the responsibility that's put forth. So yeah, huge, absolutely huge. Let's hit group leaders. We kind of touched on a little bit before on when we're talking about the contestants, but I think there's, and we always say, well, we can grab anybody to be a group leader. Well, I think you can. Anybody can walk from students from class to class and collect cards. But I also believe they need to be somewhat positive, and most importantly, aware of what's going on with those contestants, aware of what's going on with that class. They can make or break a contest for the kids in their group by not paying attention to what's going on, or they can make it a very positive experience by engaging. So we talked about, there's always been contestants that are going to try to look off of others' notebooks, and we can't. That's a subjective call, whether they are or aren't. That's very difficult. I think as a group leader, you probably bring it to the contest superintendent's attention, maybe give that person a warning. I don't have an answer, and I think each contest superintendent is going to handle it differently. But let's go beyond that. Let's think about later in the day, Ryan, when you've got somebody driving hogs that just decides they don't want to drive them very much, and the hogs are pretty much in one position. Or you have people leading livestock that are kind of giving up. Anything that group leader can do to insert themselves and be a little encouraging. Hey, let's get these animals moved. Let's get them presented correctly. I think they're the ones there at the class. If there's not a class manager that's overseeing those kind of things, that can make a huge difference on how they're conducting themselves, making sure that everybody gets that chance if we're to set them up and give them 5 seconds or whatever it is to handle. Just make sure it's all structured and done in a manner that is fair to everybody.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about being a group leader that can pretty much, if you have this quality or trait in a group leader, then they can pretty much, as long as they're aware and they stay aware, they don't zone out during it. Because, I mean, however many classes there are, however many rounds, but you've got to stay aware of the situation, aware of the contestants, aware of the people that are, just like you said, leading the animals, showing the animals, all those things. Just stay up, stay aware, keep your mind on what's going on, because you may just think that you're a group leader, but you are way more than that. Because in terms of the kids in that group, like you said, unless there is a class manager, it is your responsibility not only to ensure that everybody's kind of, doing their own work, not taking a survey of cards, all that other stuff, but also that those kids who saw the market sheep the very first class of the day get just as good a look when it's the last round or the last class in that round. And a group leader is a big part of that. And so I think just being aware and staying on top of things is something that is really a trait that we need to have in those group leaders.
And it's interesting that group leader, because they are the ones kind of in that trench with that group, they will have as much of an impact on whether that is a successful contest and a fair contest for all as anybody. And that is saying a lot. And I appreciate those group leaders that go out there and they are aware and they're doing that job to make sure it all happens. There's so many things that come into making this contest good. And Ryan and I are always wanting that perfect. And it's maybe never going to be perfect, but we sure have to do everything we can to make it as good as we can. And I'll talk about this later, because you stop and think about it. When you get to that senior college level at the senior college contest at the North American, your national contest, those kids may have started out when they began in 4-H at 8, 9, 10 years old in contests and progressed into more serious contests through senior 4-H or FFA in high school and on into junior college. The amount of their life that was dedicated to improving their ability to evaluate and discuss livestock is huge, especially once they hit that national 4-H, national FFA level on into junior college and senior college. I cannot even come up with a number in terms of how many hours that they would dedicate to this particular event to get to that final point, that national senior college contest. And it's huge. You can't do something half-ass when you stop and think about the time and effort that all of those contestants put in, the coaches, everybody behind the scenes, all of those. I think just stopping and thinking about that, you're going to do everything you can to make it as good as you can.
No, and you are right. And I think that's the purpose of this topic and for the podcast is I think every single person that's involved in a judging contest, whether they know it or not, they have an effect on the outcome of that contest in some way. And so, until they realize that, because I don't think many group leaders think that their job is important or anything like that. Every single person that is involved in that contest at some point, depending on how well they do what they're supposed to be doing, yeah, it has an effect. So I think that's why we need to make people aware of this, and that's why we need to have this topic.
Let's even make it a touch more real. And I'm going to take it, and I know I'm leaning on the senior college contest a lot, just because, Ryan, you were an official there, and I was able to discuss things after the contest with you, and I was present during that contest. I believe at the awards breakfast, 1 point separated the top two teams, Ryan, this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I may be confused, but I'm pretty sure. Think about
it's 1 point. It was 1 point. No, wait. 1 point. 1 or 2? 2.
It was a very low number. Okay.
Yeah.
So
1 or 2. I can't remember exactly.
And going back to Ryan's point, every person involved makes a difference. Whether that official puts a 2 point cut or a 4 point cut on that class, all of a sudden you have a different national champion team. And even if it wasn't 1 point this year, it has been that way in the past at times.
I know.
Usually it seems like it always comes down to very few points, even not just individually, but as the team. And that cut makes a difference. If that group leader or that person driving those hogs decides not to drive them real well in that last round, and we didn't get a good look, and that one contestant on one team that ended up second flipped a pair that maybe they would have had the opposite if they'd have got a better look at those hogs, that determines the national champion team. It's amazing that reason's official. That 1 point or 2 points on a 47 versus a 49 or whatever it may be, that one small decision, and think about it, there's thousands of these decisions being made in a contest.
In every contest,
every
right.
last one of them. Yeah, every last one of them could have the impact on who is the national champion or who wins that given contest. So it's incredible to me that it comes down to those things that we don't think about. Let's talk about officials, Ryan. Obviously, and I'll state the obvious and then let you jump in. They need to be qualified. They need to fully understand the importance of their officiating. And it's always going to be subjective. Each person has their own opinions. Ryan, I talked about life experiences and your environment and what you're currently doing is going to impact how you sort livestock. And that's human nature. We know that this isn't an absolute, that it is subjective when you go into these contests. But Ryan, tell us the responsibilities of those officials.
Well, again, I think, talking about whoever the manager is or whoever's in charge, picking the officials, I do think that it needs to go beyond the fact that those people are current in their knowledge of the situation or their species that they're being asked to be a committee on. I think it also needs to be that those people want to be there and want to be involved. And because, again, the officials are going to turn in their cards, and a lot of times it's not going to be very similar. When Brent Jennings was giving his remarks in the Grand Champion Goat Drive at Louisville, he served on the Sheep and Goat Committee, and he said that, that there were 6 of them on that committee, and this should be so easy to mark 4 animals, but most of the times it wasn't easy for them. And I can tell you, I was on the cattle committee. It was not easy for us. We had several of those classes that we officiated that 6 people, we had 6 different cards marked. And so it's not easy, but I think the thing is if you want to be there and you want to be involved and you want to make the contest the best, that's something that needs to be there in the official. And a lot of that is actually taking place in the discussion of how is this going to work out in the end. These are the cards. What do we think is the best solution? And I'll be honest with you, there was one lady on our committee, Deb Core, and she referenced several times that, we got to keep what's best for the contests and what's best for the contestants in mind when we were talking about how those need to be. And that she was dead on accurate on that. And so, again, and I'm not saying that everybody does this, but I have been on committees before because I've been on lots of livestock judging committees where nobody said a word. They're just like, oh, okay, whatever. Then you're really not doing your part. And so you not only do you have to be current, but you've also got to want to be there and be active. And then another thing that is becoming a problem, and they brought that up to us at Louisville, is after the cards are marked, after the placings are done, and you're going in that reasons room, it is a long, drawn-out process. I don't care what size contest it is. And it's a monotonous and it's a tedious process, and I understand that. You've got to give your full attention to every single one of those kids. And it's not easy. It's not. I'm not going to lie to you. It is a very hard job. But the cell phone texting and stuff like that is kind of getting out of control for officials. And I mean, they brought it up to us before reasons. And so if you are an official, I am as attached to my 2 cell phones as anybody in the history of the world, to the fact that I sleep with one in my hand, okay? But I can put them away and listen to those kids, just like I can put it in my bag and judge a show and all that. And then again, in between sets, if you need to check, return a text, whatever, that's fine. But even if that phone is just sitting there and it's on vibrate or whatever, and it vibrates or moves and the desk, makes a sound or it lights up, those are all distraction. And so just got to put it away. And again, the biggest thing is with all of this is they are volunteers too, just like the general manager, just like the group leaders, all this other stuff. And so I get that you're volunteering your time, you're not getting paid for this, and that decisions, whether your business, all this stuff, go on during this time. Please still put the phone up during reasons.
Absolutely. And Ryan, I think you hit on something very key, that they have not only qualified and current and all the things that appear to be obvious, they want to be there and they want to take part in officiating that contest. And if they want to be there, the likelihood of them putting that cell phone away or not texting during a set of reasons or all the things that you mentioned are far less likely. I think they're going to conduct themselves in a manner that is very professional if they want to do it. If they're doing it because they're asked, they really didn't want to do it, then we're going half-hearted into it, and that doesn't work. And
this, this is something that I'm glad you brought up, because you just said it. If they're just doing it because they've been asked, well, we've talked about this in terms of people judging shows. There's not many people that are going to say no. They're just not. I don't know why, unless there's a big conflict and they can't be there, especially if it's one of those bigger national contests. They're not going to say no. So that is something that I think people that serve on committees and all this other stuff, if maybe you've done it 100 times before, I don't know, but you've really got to want to be there to make it work, because there are going to be discussions, there are going to be things that are not pleasant on a committee. It's not like we have a party back there, and you've really got to want to be an active part and make it the best you can be if you're going to serve as an official.
No, and I want to let this lead into another part while we're on the reason side of it. Ryan talks about how monotonous. I don't remember how many reasons I listened to at a contest in Kansas here not very long ago, but it was hours and hours and hours. And it is very, very difficult to give your full attention to each and every set, but you have to do your best to do so. I think one of the solutions to that, and I don't see it as much anymore as I used to, but at Louisville, it was very, very traditional that in both the junior and senior college, that they would split reasons and do an A and a B. They'd have the 2 reasons listeners listen to the first 10 sets or however many the contest superintendent asked them to together to try to get a bearing on where their scores are and try to get them as similar as possible. But guess what? When you have 2 different officials separate listening to different sets, one in Group A and one in Group B, they are not going to be scored the same. And I'm not saying one official's wrong and one official's right. It's subjective and it's not going to be there. When this would happen, unfortunately, in the reasons division, and ultimately, remember, we're talking about entire teams winning or losing contests by 1 or 2 points, depending on which, if you had 3 people listening on side A and 2 on B versus flipped, that may have taken you over the top in the reasons division because side A was a little more generous. And there's nothing anybody's doing wrong. It's just the circumstance that is there, and it's going to happen. It's human nature. It's subjective. It's all of those things. So when we have situations like that, it does improve, Ryan. It cuts the people in half that you have to listen to. So you're probably giving more attention or able to easier give more attention to each and every contestant, but you're possibly giving to 2 different reasoned officials as far as your teammate or versus somebody on another team, whatever it may be. I think it throws a little bit more into the area of luck or randomness on which reasoned listener you get to give to and whether they are going to score you a little higher or a little lower. And each and every point affects the contest. I'm not trying to be negative on this because I think it was a necessity at one time. But if we don't have that many contestants, then we can condense it down to have 1 or 2 people in the same room listening. Absolutely in favor of that. It might even be a positive, Ryan, to have 2 people in that room that are independently writing scores down where it doesn't come across maybe that if you're just giving to one listener, there's one term that just hit that person bad and you get dinged 3 or 4 points for it, where it may not bother 9 other officials. So 2 of them in the same room probably gives us a little better balance across the board. And we simply write the scores down. If you come up with a half point, average, bump that half point up or bump it down, round up or down, just so you're consistent. I think that gives a truer, evaluation of each and every contestant's ability to give reasons rather than splitting into 2 groups, which was a necessity at one time. So I appreciate where we're going this direction. I can't emphasize enough what Ryan said, how difficult, and there's a lot of people out there listening that have sat through those reasons room and listened to hundreds of sets of reasons. It is just hard to do. And we have to do our best to give our full attention to each and every one of those kids. But that's my rant for the moment. Let's if possible, let's condense and give to that one or two officials in the same room rather than splitting them up. And I don't even know, Ryan, at senior college, I believe you had two officials in the room, so they did not split them this year. I'm not sure on junior college. I think some of our numbers collegiately have condensed a little bit, so they're not having to do a group A and B, but I have not been involved in it directly as much here recently.
The 3 years that I have been, which the last 3 years that I have been on the North American senior college deal, how it worked is that in the first year was Rona year, so again, craziness. But two people listened to the same set of reasons, and we scored independently after the first 5. We talked about trying to get our balance, but we were in the same room, and then after the first 5, independently, and then we didn't know whose score would count or whose wasn't, but supposedly half my scores counted for half the contestants, and whoever I listened with, half the scores counted, and we never knew, which kid it was that our score would count or not. So, and that's how it's gone the past few years. And from what I have been told, because this has been, a heated discussion for several of the officials throughout the 3 years, is that the coaches, that this is the system that the coaches have come up with and what they want. And so I can see a million different, like you said, back in the day when there was an A and B, you fell on the easier side or you didn't, and that was just luck of the draw, and that was something that you accepted going in. I get what Dale's saying. If there's going to be 2 of them in there, then you take the 2 scores, you put them together, round up or down, be consistent on that. I can see that being a way too. Another thing is, if you don't, I realize that they don't want to limit the number of officials on those committee because you need as many opinions as possible to make it a well-rounded contest, to get as much knowledge and different opinions in there as you can in terms of the placings. I'll be honest with you. I think there would be people, if you just because to be just completely honest, the most fair way is for whoever is taking market stairs to hear everybody in the contest on market stairs. I mean, and score them accordingly. I think there would be people that would say, hey, I don't have to listen to reasons this afternoon. I'm here, did this, whatever, that's fine. Louisville's a 3-year term. Maybe you don't get to listen to reasons 1 year. I don't know, but there's lots of different ways to go about it and do it. I'm not saying what the perfect way is, but that's always going to be something that's going to be up for debate, and always need to put new thoughts and spins on it, because there's probably never going to be a perfect way to do that. But I'll just throw my 2 cents in there. If the contest is not as huge as it used to be, like it is now, I had to listen to every single kid for the past 3 years regardless. I do think the most fair way of any contest, if somebody's going to listen to every set of reasons, then that one person be the score, because that person is going to be the most consistent with their own.
Nope. I think the less we leave to random chance, the better. And that's just what it comes down to. And it is never going to be perfect, and it just is what it is. So I appreciate that discussion. Another part we haven't talked about is there are people assigned to go out and select the classes and find those classes, whether they're coming off a farm, whether they're coming out of the show at Louisville, lots of different directions they can come. But that person, whether they're, and a lot of times they would prefer that person is not on the official committee, because you have biases when you're picking those classes out how you want them. And I get that. But those selections on those classes are going to play a huge role. When we're putting these classes together, there needs to be some form of logic, maybe some relative importance within the industry. And we understand everything's subjective, and animals that may work well aren't always available. So that those people out there selecting those classes, that is a difficult job. Very, very difficult, because you're working with what's available and trying to make that class fit a logical pretense, and it's just not always possible, I guess.
And I think probably the most difficult thing about that is, or two things that are the most difficult thing about it. First off, there are some people that they contact and they say, hey, will you bring a class? Like, of course, Dale didn't do it this year, but years before, you have brought a class of does to Louisville. And so you bring 5 or 6 and they put them together and send the best class out there. Now, they don't come to your farm and do that. So they rely on you to get those ones up there and pick them out and try to make it logical. Well, not everybody that gets asked to do that is going to send the very best that they can. And I understand that. And so I think that makes it hard because when they bring them in, sometimes it's only 6 that you can choose from. There's got to be 4 in a class. I think the other part of that is if they are going out a show at Louisville and selecting, hey, we're going to have a class of Angus bulls. Well, they're just going around the stalls and they're saying, hey, can we use this bull from point A to point B tomorrow, all this other stuff. Very rarely can they get those animals together as a group and see them like you would see them in the class of 4 tomorrow, because I can't tell you how many times that regardless of the contest and people that are in this job, and I think it's one of the toughest jobs that there are and the most thankless job, because just like you said, these people aren't on the committee. Very few times do they get any of the glory or any of the pats on the back or thank you. And this is probably as crucial job as any. But I've heard it a million. Well, last night, that this class made more sense before we saw them all together. And that's part of it.
And that's just being honest. That's true.
And I mean, that's going to happen. It just is. It's just all there is to it. Because until you can see them 4 side by side like a judging team contestant would, it's going to be very hard to know if it makes sense or not. And I've heard that at almost every single contest, and it's just part of it. And so I do think that the person that's in charge of picking out the classes, they have such a hard job. Again, not everybody's going to let them use their stuff, use their stock. I can go through and tell you 900 challenges for that person. The one thing that I want to say to those people that do take that on, I appreciate you. I understand it's not easy. I understand that you, again, there's lots of people that come up and shake my hand or tell me thank you after a contest for being official, listening. They don't go to that person. And they are just as integral a part, just as important a part, and probably have the toughest job of anybody. So from me to you, people in those roles, thank you.
Absolutely. Well said. There's one that I'm gonna throw a personal spin on, maybe because it's difficult for me, and Ryan can come in and say, well, that's crazy. It's not that difficult. But if I look at judging contest, the history of judging contests over the past 20 years or whatever time frame you want to look at, for me personally right now, the actual class description and or a scenario that they put on is probably as important to me now as it's ever been. To me, that actual description or scenario makes a huge difference in how we align that class. If contest officials are not giving specific guidance, that contestant needs to make that judgment call. And I think we're in a situation, and it's probably been going on for years. I'm just more detached than I was at one time. But we used to go into a local contest, and maybe everything came from a commercial perspective. You had commercial market hogs. There were no show livestock, and we kept it a little more real world. We go to a contest like Louisville, and everything's pulled out of the show, and we're sorting them a little more like show livestock. But there is a big difference there. And if we stop and think about it, that class description, and I'm not even saying going all the way to a scenario. Usually we don't have scenarios unless we have data, but occasionally you'll have just a scenario that's stating what this class is used for without any data going with it. And that's okay, because it gives those contestants direction. It puts them all on the same path. So if you walk up to a class of market hogs. Let's start with hogs, Ryan, real quick. And they appear they just came off a feeding floor. Ryan, are you going to sort those as an official more like show hogs or more like a commercial set of hogs that are probably going to market shortly?
Well, I think, again, that goes back to the individual official, but probably if they look like commercial hogs, you're probably going to tend to sort them more like that.
Yeah, and I think that and there's not as we don't see as many of those in our collegiate contest maybe as we did at one time, but we see it in the 4-H and the FFA contest. But if we've got a set of hogs that comes in there that the hair, they're clipped, the skin and hair is right, all those things are right, does that not tell you, hey, this is like sorting show hogs? It should give you that indication. So I don't know that we need a absolute description on something like that. But in some situations, and if we move into cattle, you could get a class of feedlot steers. Do they still have feedlot steers at Denver? Do you know, Ryan, in the collegiate contest? They used to have it. That was kind of
they did
the one contest that they have this feedlot steer class, and obviously we're not looking at them as show steers. So those we're breaking down their apparent performance and where their carcass characteristics are, and all those kind of things. But if we shift gears. We've got some very unhappy dogs here, I think. If we shift gears and we've got a set of cattle out there or a set of heifers, we're going to clearly know if these are clipped show cattle or if they're just brought in off the range and these are kind of some replacement commercial heifers. But it's nice to maybe have that class description if we want to be able to sort those or know where the officials are and all the contestants are kind of on that same page. For example, if we have a class of bulls, they're obviously going to be placed different if these are producing commercial replacement heifers or these are going to be used in elite show operations to continue the production of junior show heifers. There's a lot of different things we can do with that and that scenario and or class description. If there's any chance there can be confusion, needs to maybe clarify that to a certain degree, at least in my opinion. But the contestant, if it's not there, you can look at those animals and kind of make that designation. Yeah, these are show animals, or no, these are a little more commercial based. And I think that's part of it. We have the common issue in goats all the time. And every time I supply a class of goats, I let that person know that's contacting me, these are going to be weather dams or weather-based genetics. They're not full bloods or not percentage registered goats. So consequently, you're going to look at them a little bit different. If we have a class of full blood does or percentage does, we're going to put a lot more emphasis on performance and frame size and just how fast they've grown. We're going to look at their horn set. We're going to look at pigmentation. Things that like horn set and pigmentation, if you're giving me reasons on weather-based genetics, I could care less what that is. It has zero impact on how I'm making a breeding decision or how I'm sorting those animals. So there is a difference. And we walk up to a doe class and it just says does or breeding does. And we don't know if they're weather dams. We don't know if they're full bloods. That becomes confusing. Some kids will try to decide one way or the other on their own, but those are simple things that I guess it falls back, Ryan, onto the contest superintendent just to maybe a quick walkthrough or just clarify that this all makes sense. And I'm probably going further with this than needed, but I know that we run into situations like that really confuse some of those contestants because they're looking at it from a completely different angle than maybe what the officials are. And Ryan, I think it must be in junior college. Did you have any fit breeding sheep or frame sheep at the senior college contest? I know you weren't on the sheep committee, but I don't know if you looked at. So I
don't think they did. Now, one of the classes, the heifers were fed, but I don't remember.
So on the junior college contest, historically, they'd bring a set of what I'd call frame sheep, breeding sheep out of the show at Louisville. And it's it's the largest breeding sheep show in the world, I believe. Will they be Shropshires or Southdown or whatever breed they may be? And that might be the only contest you truly see that level of frame sheep that have been cut out and fit and all of those things. And you're going to look at those so much differently than you'd look at a class of, say, weather dam ewes. No question, totally different. And I think the assumption is at most contests in the sheep arena or the sheep portion of the contest, we're placing those more on how they would produce wethers or that side of the industry than we are the true breeding, purebred frame sheep side of it. And I think it's a little bit because that's what's available to bring. that when they reach out to producers or wherever they're at to bring a class, there's more people on that side of the industry, and there's still those elite, really good breeders out there in frame sheep, but they're not maybe as readily available as there are on the weather genetics side. So I was bringing that up just because, and I guess it falls under the contest superintendent. Let's make sure that our class name gives some direction if there's any confusion whatsoever, or that scenario. And obviously, if there's a scenario, it's giving a great deal of direction. Ryan, where are you at? We're forgetting all kinds of things, I'm sure.
No, I think we've covered almost everything. The only other thing that I want to address, in terms of the fact that, and I don't know if this is at every contest, but I have noticed it at Louisville every single year. And this isn't bashing these kids at all. At Louisville, the people that show the animals are kids that unfortunately did not get to mark cards that day. And you add into the fact that's the very last contest, that's the national contest, all this other stuff. There is 900 million emotions that those kids are filled with right there when you don't get those cards to mark. I don't know what that's like. Obviously, I marked at Louisville, so I can't even begin to empathize with them. I do know kids that have gone through it, and they have relayed to me how it feels, and so I know that just point blank, it sucks. You've put all this into this, and the very last contest, that's the one that means the most, you don't get to mark. And so I get that you're disappointed, you're mad, you're pissed, you're all of those things. But now you have a job to do. And you have to go out there and you have to show that calf, or you have to drive that hog, or you have to hold that sheep, or whatever it is. And every year I have seen someone who you could tell they're over it, they're not happy about it, whatever, and it is now affecting how that animal looks in that class. And so all you're doing when we get to that point is you're making it harder for your team to do the best they can do, because we're not doing what we need to do in terms of showing the animal. And again, I'm not bashing these kids at all. I don't know what that's like. I can only empathize with them. But if you're going to go out there and you're going to do it, you're going to have to, for those couple of hours, just to squash that inside you and do the best that you can, because you're not only hurting your teammates' chances to do the best they can do when you're not showing that animal properly, it affects the whole contest. And I'm telling you, I know as an official, it affects the contest.
No question whatsoever, Ryan. And that leads me to, I've got my Christmas wish list here. So if we have a led cattle class or market goats or market lambs in a stand, and we never have enough volunteers for the contest, we always could use more. But I think a class manager, maybe at that led heifer class, that maybe goes around, and if they notice one of those participants that's leading the cattle or showing the cattle is letting that head drop or not, just maybe go around and say, hey, let's get this one's head up. Just monitor that and encourage them. Hey, when one of them isn't getting the job done, hey, let's get back in gear. Let's get back focused to what we're doing. I think that would help. And the same thing when those lambs are in stands, adjusting that headpiece to make sure everything's right, making sure that those lambs are standing square and in the same position. If the more people, the better from that standpoint, as far as not only a group leader there, but possibly a class manager. To make sure some of that doesn't happen. But Ryan, you're right. It comes down to, when we're talking about these lead classes, it comes down to that showman. And wow, does it make a difference if we've got that head up, we got that head down, we're on the move, whatever it may be, whether we're not setting the legs, whatever it may be, is going to make a difference. And I appreciate some of the referees and or contest superintendent, when I'm officiating contest, they'll want to hold off in giving those official cards and cuts to the scoring room until later in the day, because some of these animals are going to get tired. Some of these animals aren't going to look as good later in the day as they did earlier in the day. And I'm not saying we can change our placing, because that's not fair to those contestants that went through originally, but we can adjust cuts accordingly if we see an animal starting to fall apart that maybe made it up into that top pair or anything that we need to do. So that is one thing that I don't know that we touched on, but let's as officials, let's look at them not just when we first get there in the morning and get our placing and cuts. Let's go back and look at them midday and maybe towards the end of that contest just to make sure that everything still looks the same.
Okay, so we're going to probably disagree just a little bit here. But because my final point in all this is first off, midday and at the end of the day, normally these things are done in rounds. And so the contestants are only going to see them in that round. So I think the one thing that was kind of my final send off on this is I think it is very important that the officials should have to mark their card in the same time frame that the contestants do. Because you're asking these contestants to make a decision on the alignment of these 4 animals in a number of minutes. And
I agree.
To be fair, I think that the officials should have to at the same time. Because I don't think it's fair for them to be able to go to one class and, you know what, I don't know. I'm going to bounce around to the next class and see if this one's easier and stuff like that. Because that's not how a kid or a contestant goes through that contest. And so if you're wanting to make it as correct and true and right for the kids in the contest, then you should be under the same parameters that they are. Now, do I agree with you on the fact that as that round goes, animals are going to tire out more readily than others? Stuff like that? Absolutely. Do I think after the officials have turned in their cards for that class, they've had the discussion, whenever at the end of the round, when the coaches are about to be let in, do you want to go back and look and just make sure, say, hey, maybe we should adjust this cut right here because this one is what? That's fine. I get that and I understand that, but I do think something that we are overlooking in a large majority of these contests is the officials are not being put under the same parameters as the kids are to mark their cards within the same time and the same rules as those other kids, and I think they should.
Nope, and we agree 100% on that, Ryan. I'm glad you brought that up, and I think that you're also insinuating that they don't need to just wander around up close, but maybe stay back within the parameters, the exact parameters the kids are given, literally.
I mean, I think it should be as close. I think it should be as close to what the contestants are doing as possible. I mean, I just think that's what you're asking these kids to mark a placing on these 4, given so you're allowed to stand here, stay here, only handle them once, all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you, I'm guilty. I try not to be. Now, I will mark whatever, but I am guilty of, because they don't put any restraints on you, of maybe going in a little closer.
Because it's easier.
If it's close. Right, because it's easier. And again, I shouldn't do that because I'm the one saying that this isn't right. I do think this is something that needs to be worked on and needs to be addressed, because I think the officials should have to mark the cards under the same duress that those kids are marking them under, because it's not easy.
It makes it way harder.
So
way harder.
That's the one thing that I think that we need to look at more seriously, I guess.
Nope. Very, very good point. Well, I think that concludes it. This was a good discussion, Ryan. I appreciate it, and hopefully that this gets out to plenty of listeners.
And I know we didn't cover everything, and we didn't miss everything, and I don't want everybody to think that we think that judging contests are terrible or anything like that. I think they're great. That's why I've volunteered my time. That's all this other stuff. I think there are things that can be done better in every single level. And I do want to reiterate one more time that every single person that is involved in that contest is going to have an effect on the outcome. And just like Dale said, 1 or 2 points, I can't tell you how many times 1 or 2 points has decided whether a kid wins individual, team wins, not just at Louisville, but throughout contests, whatever. And every single person that partakes in that contest is going to have an effect. And so we've all just got to do the best that we can possibly do to make sure it's the most correct for those kids.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. It is time for your favorite portion, question and answer.
It's
Rosella
December
gives us the
almost.
first question.
Can't we just not do
Maybe the Christmas
question and
edition
answer
we
in
will
December?
skip
It's
it.
the holiday season.
No, I took at least 5 minutes to find these before we started. So we're going to do them. Rosella, hello.
good.
First
great.
of all, I would like to thank both of you for this podcast and everything you do for the livestock community. If it weren't for people such as you, our showing days would have been over when our girls aged out of FFA. Instead, they are looking to make this a significant part of their lives going forward. So thank you so much for everything that you do for the kids and all the future generations. It is greatly appreciated. My question is a little complex. I've heard you talk many times about breed characteristics, and while it's easy to pick out like a Hereford and a Charolais because of their coloring, could you explain in more detail what sets different breeds apart?
Well, I guess that would mean which breed is she discussing? Because I don't know.
I think she's referring to maybe specific traits of the breed, and maybe there's a better way to answer this. This is a topic that Ryan and I, and actually my son Chase brought to my attention that he was very interested in. Breed,
and we're going to do it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
purity.
And we're going to break it down, Rosella, in an entire episode. So I think it's a good question, but I
mean, for instance, I guess if she's talking about that she can recognize a Hereford because it's red and white or whatever. Well, I mean, you can even go into all the black ones. Okay, of course, Angus are polled, but there's lots of other black animals that are polled too. Some, and so again, I don't know how to answer this question specifically without her saying, please tell me the breed characteristics of a Maine Anjou, and then I could kind of, go in there and say, well, they kind of look for this and this and this, whatever. But yeah, so I'm sorry.
Give the traditional breed characteristics.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer it unless she's without her asking for a specific breed. And again, a lot of this will be addressed and discussed in detail because Chase is chomping at the bit about this lovely little topic.
Very, very interested in that one.
About
so I think
purity.
And without going too far and spoiling the episode, if we were to take, I'm just going to pull some cattle breeds up here. Let's just say solid black, Maine, a semi, a key. And you put those three out there of similar age, similar weight, fit. Could you walk out there and tell me definitively this is what each of those breeds are?
I would like to think that I would be able to give you a very well-educated guess because while they would all be black and all the same weight, they should look differently. There are characteristics that differentiate them. Now, could I say with 100% that I could nail each and every single one? No, I'm not going to tell you that because
it depends what we put out there in front of you. Obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, but you could go find a key, you could go find a Maine, and you could go find a Simmental that are all supposed to be purebred. You could drag them out there, and I think that you would just be like guessing because you could find three that look that similar. Now, should they? Probably not, but you could. You know what I'm saying? It would depend on the ones out there, but yeah, absolutely. There are things that are supposed to define them, but they're not always there.
And I think at the same time, you could find a key, a semi and a Maine and bring out there that are distinguishing into their breed. I think it can go either way depending on what we pull out.
Absolutely. And so that's why this is going to be a great topic here in a couple of weeks.
Okay, Rosella, hopefully you can tune in here in a few weeks and you'll get to hear a lot about that particular topic. Kimberly gives us the next question. Good morning. We're in Louisville to watch the North American Livestock Exposition. I have a question. There are many people that show both sheep and goats. So where do these people keep their goats before they move in? So in this situation, the sheep are the weekend. Sheep show over the weekend, I believe, Saturday, Sunday. Goats show Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on full blood or weather. There's at least a couple days separating those. They're not all in the grounds at the same time. For example, at the American Royal, your sheep and goats are all in place in the building showing at the same time. At Louisville, the sheep and goats come in early. They're released. Those same pins then get used by the goat people. So her question is, what do you do if you have both species? What do you do with your goats while you're waiting to move in, while you're showing sheep?
I think a lot of that depends on the individual family. I tell you, the kid that had champion sheep and champion goat, Hayden Schrader, his mom and him and some other people were there for the sheep, and his stepfather wasn't there for the sheep show because he brought the goats up while they were showing sheep. And so, again, I think it depends on the family and who can be off work, who can't be off work, all that other stuff. But when it is like that, and it's not just at Louisville, Texas Majors, I can't tell you how many times mom and dad have to be pulling two different truck and trailers at once because we're down here with heifers, but the steers move in as soon as the heifers move out, etc. And so there is no easy answer to this question. If you want to do both, you've just got to find a way. There are people that, again, just from my experiences, there are people that say, hey, we'll stay back with the heifers, y'all go in with the steers, we'll come in with the heifers, and they group up, families get together, help each other out, stuff like that. But it's going to depend basically on what that kid's family can do in terms of who can be away, who can be off work, etc.
And that's perfect answer, Ryan. I think that covers it well. And Kimberly, I guess just to simplify things, I don't. There are very few shows that are going to provide pins or something to accommodate something like that. So it is your responsibility to figure it out. Some will leave them on the trailer. If they have a nice show trailer, they can leave them out in the parking lot and attend to them. It may not be ideal, but it's a situation that's real, and you just got to work through the best way possible. The final question, Ryan, and I think I'm sure we've had this. Maybe it was last year. I don't know when. Ryan and Dale, do you know which Texas majors you will be attending this year? Didn't we have this one before?
Yes, we have had this one before. And I'll be honest,
to commit you to an answer.
Commit me to an answer. I know that I will be at Houston. I plan on being at San Antonio. I will be at Houston pretty much the whole time. I plan on being at San Antonio for some of it, maybe not all of it. Plan on going to the Fort Worth Junior Heifer Show and the Junior Steer Show. As far as San Angelo and Austin, it is up in the air right now, and it will depend on judging schedule and all this other stuff. To be honest with you, I'm basically going to live in Oklahoma the month of January because I'm judging 4 breeds at Cattlemen's Congress. So I'm there for the first 2 weeks, and then I go back and judge some county fairs and a big jackpot hog show called the Dynasty that's open to the world. So I'm going to spend a lot of time in January in Oklahoma, but I do plan on being at the Fort Worth Junior Heifer Show and the Fort Worth Steer Show, and that also, like, steers, hogs are there and stuff like that. So I plan to be at a lot of them, but that's what I can tell you right now.
That's pretty definitive. That's better than I think last time when it came up. And I can tell you from my standpoint, I would like to attend all.
Dale's not
the
going
Texas
at
majors.
all. He's not. He's not going.
I will be at some of the Texas majors. Now, to be as transparent as I can, depending on what's going on at home and other schedules, my daughter Tara, our manager Craig, myself, my wife, we would all love to be there. That's not possible. So what we will end up doing here shortly is try to figure out. I do believe we have clients showing at each of the majors, and we do like to be there to support those clients and add guidance or assistance, as much or as little as they would like. So traditionally, I will make at least 2 or 3 of them. I would say this year I couldn't even tell you. I'm pretty sure I'll be at Angelo, depending on our schedule. And if I'm not there, either one of our representatives or our manager Craig will be there. It seems like I do end up at San Antonio every year. Last year, I did attend Houston.
Because he loves Mexican food. It has nothing to do with the COVID.
This is true. Now, the one that I attended every year for many, many years until COVID was Fort Worth, and I kind of miss getting to Fort Worth. So maybe I'll try to get there as well. But as it gets closer, I'd be more than happy to give you more definitively, and I think Ryan will be able to on Angelo and Austin as well. But as of right now, I'm going to try to make all of them. Ryan, how's that for a New Year's resolution?
There you go. Dale's going to go to all of them. I'm not. I'm just going to, I don't think I will. I do not. But there you go.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time, Ryan. Great topic that we were able to discuss, and hopefully it benefits those out there participating and sponsoring and putting on the livestock judging contest across the country. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now. You hear?